Okay, before we go too much further in our discussions about integrative medicine, we need a foundation for how we come to study and practice medicine. Western medicine relies on a foundation of evidence for developing clinical practices. So, what exactly is evidence based medicine, and how can we use it as a guide in this class to help us elucidate practices that show positive health benefits? So here's a practical definition of evidence based medicine. The practice of evidence based medicine involves the integration of the best research evidence with clinical expertise and patient values to provide the best medical care possible. So, this is really the foundation that we use for modern Western medicine. So, why is this a good idea? Let's take a look at an example where enough evidence for treatment was not used. This was the case for the use of the drug thalidomide, which was marketed in 1957 in West Germany. Thalidomide was used as a sedative and a treatment for anxiety, especially for women. Unfortunately, it was not tested properly in pregnant women, and it led to thousands of infants being born with pretty severe birth defects. So, this talks about some of the regulatory mechanisms in the United States that were in place that actually kept this from going to market. And so the FDA actually refused to approve thalidomide for marketing and distribution in the United States. However, it was tested quite largely in the United States during clinical trials and resulted in 17 children with thalidomide-induced malformations that were born in the United States. However, this dwarfs the thousands of children that were affected in West Germany. So, how do drugs that are used by prescription get passed in the United States? They have to go through a very rigorous testing process through the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA. So, let's take a walk through the different stages of approval. The first stage is the preclinical development of the drug. In this scenario, the drug sponsor, which is usually a pharmaceutical company, will sponsor the development of the new drug molecule seeking to have it approved by the FDA. This stage requires two steps. The first is animal testing. At this stage, the sponsor tests the drug for toxicity in multiple different species, as well as testing for efficacy of the treatment. If the animal testing is passed, the drug sponsor can then submit an IND application. IND stands for Investigational New Drug. If it's accepted by the FDA, the company will then develop a manufacturing protocol and a plan for testing the drug in humans. So before going to stage 2, the FDA will review all of the animal testing, the manufacturing protocol, and the plan for testing the drug in humans before providing their approval. This can take several months to a year or more to do these review processes. Once passed, the second stage involves the clinical trials in humans. And there are 3 types of clinical trials that a drug must go through during this stage. Phase 1 clinical trials focus on toxicity and safety of the drug within the human population. This tests the drug on a healthy sample of the population and looks for the common side effects and toxicity of the drug. Phase 1 starts small with usually only 20 to 80 healthy participants. If the drug has good safety margins and low toxicity effects, it can move on to Phase 2 clinical trials. In Phase 2, the number of participants is usually in the 100s. The emphasis of Phase 2 is to determine the effectiveness of the drug in comparison to a placebo, if that's possible. So a placebo is kind of just a sugar pill or something that does not contain the drug, but that people will take and think that they might be getting that drug. So sometimes using a placebo is not ethical, right? So if you're treating a cancer patient, you can't treat them with nothing, right? So that would be an unethical situation. So if the second phase of clinical trials is passed and shows effectiveness, Then they can go into the third phase of clinical trials. And this will have thousands of patients that become tested with the drug for the evaluation of both safety, efficacy, and the dosage of the drug. These will typically include different segments of the population and address some diversity in ethnicity, race, and gender. Although that didn't used to always be the case. So early studies were done mainly on white males. So that is a bias that we still are overcoming within the United States. So if phase 3 clinical trials show that the medication is efficacious against the target, the drug sponsor will then meet with the FDA and review all of the data. If approved, the drug sponsor will then file a new drug application or an NDA with the FDA, and the drug can move to the next stage. So during the post-trial reviews, the drug sponsor will file the NDA and formally ask the FDA for the approval to market the drug. This includes the manufacturing as well as all of the data from stage 1 and 2 studies. The FDA will usually take some time, about 60 days or so, to review the new drug application. And if it's approved, the FDA will assign a team to evaluate the sponsor's research on the safety and effectiveness of the drug. The FDA also reviews the drug's professional labeling to make sure that the health professionals have all of the pertinent information they need to safely prescribe the medication to patients. And they inspect the facility where the drug will be made. The final stage is continued monitoring. So during this phase, the drug sponsor must continue to make periodic safety updates to the FDA. This means that they have to continue to monitor patient response to the drug, especially for toxicity over time, as the clinical trials are only a short time window where people would be taking the drug. So sometimes toxicity isn't found in the short time frame that you do the clinical trials, but it can appear when people are taking the drugs more long term. So how does this differ from other marketed health products like dietary supplements? Well, federal law does not regulate dietary supplements in the same way as prescription medications. The law that covers dietary supplements is called DSHEA, or the Dietary Supplements Act of 1994. So here's a definition of the dietary supplements according to the Federal Food and Drug and Cosmetics Act, the FFDCA, and they define a dietary supplement as a product other than tobacco that is not represented as a conventional food and is intended to supplement the diet, contains one or more of the following dietary ingredients, so it could contain vitamins, minerals, herbs or other botanicals, amino acids, and other substances or their constituents. So it's pretty vague. And it's intended to be taken by mouth as a pill, capsule, powder, tablet, or liquid, and is labeled on the front panel as being a dietary supplement. So those are the main requirements for putting it into this class. So companies that make dietary supplements cannot legally claim that their product will diagnose, cure, mitigate, treat, or prevent a certain disease. However, they can make certain types of claims about the benefits of the supplement, right? And this is because the supplement is not tested in the same way that a prescription medication is, and it does not go through those clinical trials and have the type of scrutiny and testing that the pharmaceutical companies must go through to get a prescription drug to market. However, the dietary supplement companies can make nutrient claims. So they could say it's high in oat bran or calorie content or things like that. They can make some health claims, and usually these will be prefaced by a term like may help. So they could say may help reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, but they cannot say that it does help reduce the risk, right? Because it hasn't really been shown in clinical trials to do this. They can also make some structure function claims. For example, calcium builds strong bones, right? So if you have calcium as one of the minerals inside your dietary supplement, then hopefully that's going to help build strong bones in your own body. So, even though dietary supplements don't go through FDA regulation and the scrutiny that pharmaceuticals go through, they can have a lot of scientific studies about their efficacy. And so, in the next lecture, we're going to focus on evidence based medicine and start to build the toolkit at how to approach this literature and provide you with the tools that you can use to sort out the strength of these different studies. And then, hopefully, by the end of the class, you can make more informed healthcare decisions about your own life. All right, see you next time.